to ET Catalyse, a show that talks to the best brains in marketing, consumer trends, and those who understand the finer nuances of digital medium. Today, we have with us on the show Kartik Iyer from Publicis Commerce, Rohit Kapoor from Perfetti Van Melle, and Sonali Bhattacharya from the Kids TV network portfolio of Viacom ET. I'd like to start with Kartik. Kartik, we've gone through two waves or two phases of pandemic. At the agency side, the innovation, I'm told, comes when you're in a room having lots of coffees, maybe a cigarette on the side, but having deep conversations with clients as well as the creative folks, in your office. Did innovation and creativity take a hit in pandemic?
It's been a very big learning for us, okay, specifically, especially in the agency world, as you rightly put, everything happens as a team, okay, and we are used to working in a coffee shop, basically brainstorming ideas and getting things done. Obviously, the pandemic was definitely a kind of a jolt for a lot of us, especially who are used to that kind of a world. But having said that, what we should definitely give a lot of kudos to is specifically to the folks at Microsoft and Zoom, okay, who have actually been able to enable us to continue to work from the comfort of our homes and still not lose touch with our friends and colleagues. The initial phase was a bit of an adaptation phase for a lot of us to basically be able to see how we can navigate these times. But having said that, I think it became work as usual for a lot of us. And to that extent, I think we were also able to emphasize and get a lot of our clients to also appreciate that reality as well, because earlier we used to be probably pretty much at clients' offices, okay, for all these brainstorming sessions, and the briefings used to happen pretty much face to face. But I thought that was also another big learning because the clients were themselves going through the same set of challenges that we were going through as well. So they were also collaborating and networking with people online. So honestly, creativity did not honestly suffer.
What were the key learnings for you working on the virtual medium, collaborating with your team, and 4 channels that you have in your portfolio, catering to kids? Television definitely took not a beating, but rather it got benefit because being cooped up at home, people were watching more television. Yes, more news, but also all the other forms of entertainment. But how was it for you and your team working on launching brands and campaigns to be sensitive enough, but nevertheless be aware that, hey, it's an opportunity also?
So I'm going to go back to March 2020, when we woke up and suddenly coronavirus, COVID-19 was not endemic anymore and a pandemic. And overnight, things had to change, not just in our mind, but in the physical world. And that is the peak of summer for Nickelodeon. April is when we get into summer with all gusto and energy. And as you know how kids are, they are the most whimsical, tactile target group you can ever work with. And a large part of whatever we do happens outside of the homes. Of course, the primary medium being Nick and the channels, which reaches millions of kids in the country, but a large part of the marketing reach out is below the line, in malls, in schools. We just had to pull the plug on all of that. We actually gave an extremely positive twist to being at home. And kids, no matter how much you try and rein them in, there is that amount of fun and innocence that has to be kept intact in all the communication that you do with them. So we conveyed the message of whether it's social distancing, being indoors, enjoying your time at home indoors with your family in a very, very lighthearted and fun manner, and not as a punishment that, you can't go outside because it's so dangerous. We had to pivot overnight and start looking at the digital medium as a primary form of marketing. Often, and I'm sure, any marketer would agree, we would set aside a certain budget for digital. That ye karna hai, ye digital pe dalenge. That shifted overnight, and you started looking at it almost as a primary screen to communicate with kids. And kids being early adopters, they are screenagers. We had to do a completely multi-screen approach. We had to tie up with this new avatar of influencers that overnight became bigger than the Bollywood celebrities at a time where kids are adulting so quickly. We're still largely a one TV household, and that 8-year-old is consuming the war that is being planned with China, to the number of deaths that have occurred in Delhi or Bombay because of oxygen not being available. He's a trapped child now. Even though he's a kid at heart, the kind of information being bombarded at him has suddenly become so serious. So it makes our role as a kids broadcaster even more important.
Rohit, what has been your experience as a marketeer with coordinating with the agencies on one side and your team on the other side, and also being conscious and aware of, okay, this is the time where my messaging has to be right? Because every marketer that we talked to, they were very clear that the content of our message, the communication, was very important to be drafted and thought through before we even put out. Now, to do all of this virtually, how was the whole process for you worked out? And any interesting learnings that you picked up through the process?
With agencies, it's all about brand and their relevance during what is happening out there in the COVID world. Our brand stands on different platforms, so we had to look at the demand movements and how the demand movements are changing in the life of the consumer as pandemic is happening in their lives. We also saw that a lot of consumption was shifting towards in-home, and the brands which were consumed out of home were taking a hit. Fortunately, it was a temporary hit, and now we see those brands also coming back. But yes, there was a hit. So we had to also do a lot of consumer insight work, consumer immersion work, and feedback that to the creative teams out there, the planning teams out there, and also provide them the opportunity. Because it is virtual world, it's very easy to share the same link. If I'm talking to let's say a kid or a teenager between 15 to 19-year-old, what's happening in his life today, I can see it. Also, my agency partners can see it in the same virtual setup. And then we can exchange notes, then we can debate it out, right? It also became a little bit easier to get them on the call. As Kartik mentioned, that the transit time or the time spent outside was lesser. Of course, that the downside was that the work days or the work hours became longer. And we have to find the right time really, that when can I get the best of my creative team and my planning team. So I will avoid doing 6:30 or 7 o'clock calls. I would like my team to be fresh. So that finding that time of the day also become like, it's a very small thing, but I need to extract the best from my brand. For example, on Center Fresh, which is all about fresh bread. So today we are living in the world where everybody has to wear mask. It's a compulsory, it's a mandate thing. In my portfolio, we have Center Fresh mints. What is the connection between mints and mask? So when you have to put the mask on, how can I help the consumer to be fresh behind the mask? He's sitting or staying in that longer meetings or whenever he's stepping out of the house. So the campaign was launched called Staying Fresh Behind the Mask. And that was rolled out in modern trade on e-commerce and also in general trade outlets. We have another brand called Alphalete Just Jelly, which is more in the house consumption brand. There we partnered with a couple of influencers, actually influencer chefs. How can they use Just Jelly in making those in-home recipes? And then we put it out to parents out there on digital and to the kids so that it improves the bonding between the kids and the parents. Or on the brand Alphalete, we reached out to some platform where do-it-yourself crafts were very, very famously done by some influencers. So we looked after each and every brand, the new reality, and how can the brands play a meaningful role in the life of the consumer, because of course the pandemic is here to stay.
Kartik, we've seen phase 1, phase 2, 2 waves, and there's a third wave expected. We don't know how many more waves to come. Has this impacted the planning around marketing budgets?
What we had definitely seen is the mix of the spends had shifted. Okay, clearly. Okay, right. So that definitely had happened. A lot of that shift from offline to online had moved. Okay, a lot of them spends from traditional to digital. We had seen a significant amount of the spends moving towards digital. So that is clearly a trend that we see. So phase 3 now, as to your point on phase 3, we don't see anything changing there. Okay, because I think it's continuing from where we left. And in fact, although there are doomsday predictions around phase 3, but we are not clearly seeing that kind of a scenario prevailing around us.
Sonali, in the whole planning for marketing, what seems to be emerging is that people are factoring in that there will be wave 1, wave 2, wave 3 and more. So has this sort of led to a start-stop marketing pattern that is emerging? And is the marketing fraternity, people like you and the friends that you have in the same profession, talking about it?
So I would say what is going to remain as a constant now is for us to be able to think on our feet almost overnight, if I were to put it very simply.
Be nimble, agile-footed, like
and
the kids that you talk to.
very, very quick, like our target group. The presence of these multiple screens is not going to go away in a hurry. And as Kartik said, more than a decline in marketing budgets, I see a reallocation of the marketing spends. The marketing mix has drastically changed. And in our case, we saw the entire kids category witnessing a huge rise. Nickelodeon gained a great amount of viewership share during the lockdown. And our job, in fact, got even harder because we had to get content out overnight to entertain the kids who were glued on. The reach increased, the time spent increased. So I would say a large part of the budget has even gone on to creating and curating a whole lot of new content, be it for digital, be it for social, be it branded content. And what you said about the start-stop button on marketing, I think that is going to stay for a while, because even if the country, a large part of the country does get vaccinated, I see a lot of local marketing coming into play because each state has started behaving in a different manner on account of the numbers.
Rohit, like we've been discussing, phase 1, 2, and many more to come. Hopefully not, but if they do, then do marketers have a plan B, or are you and the people that you talk to in your company as well? Do you guys prepare a plan B, or you say, okay, we take it when it happens?
See, when the phase 1 happened last year, really April, May, the intensity of lockdown was extremely high. There was hardly anybody stepping out of the house. So then you have to accordingly look at your consumer plans and the marketing spends. But with each subsequent wave, the lockdowns have been lesser intensive, and they have been more hyper-local or more local in nature, focusing on certain provinces. So then it allows you still to tweak your APL spends or the marketing spends. At least I can say that it will depend from category to category and brands to brand. But at least at Perfetti, we being the market leader, we are playing a role of category creation. And definitely our APL spends or A&M spends are not cut down. Last year, there was a bit of slowdown in quarter 2. Quarter 3, we started to get the A&M spends back. And by the year end, we were almost at par. And this year, actually, we are spending a little bit on a higher side, being also mindful about the possibility of the COVID wave, the third wave. Next, I think reprioritization is happening for the spends, as Sonali also mentioned, in terms of marketing mix and also in terms of geographies where you spend money. Another point is that our supply chain, the backend and the factories are also better prepared. They are the professionals or the people out there. So we're also building up stocks. Whenever we see some number of cases going up, that is a time to maybe react. How can we keep a little bit higher stock on those faster moving SKUs, which we know which will be upping in demand, and accordingly tweak our plans. So that part is equally important, and marketing teams are then coordinating with the supply chain teams to ensure that happens. So sensing the demand from the market becomes equally important at this stage.
Kartik, the latest DAN report also clearly says that digital market share has upped, and it's beaten print. It's the second after television. But within the digital marketing mix itself, that ecosystem has become very large, right? So you have social media spends, you have direct display spends, paid search, online video. It's a world in itself. How do you see, this mix sort of panning out when you talk to clients, or when you see the numbers in terms of performance that it delivers? Where is the entire mix within the digital ecosystem headed to?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. Again, this is something that I would say is, again, very, very category, very client driven. Okay, because we've seen that shift happening in a much more rapid pace for a certain set of clients, especially clients that we have seen are extremely more pro to digital. Okay, or where they see a significant amount of their play happening on digital, versus clients that we are seeing still are traditionally indexed towards their brick and mortar channels, right? So if you look at, so it is also depending on the kind of channel alignment that we are seeing and what is the kind of channel mix that they are beginning to see as far as their play across their portfolio, that we are clearly seeing that the mix change. Now, just to give you a case in point, now if you look at a lot of consumer electronics play, that is very, very clearly shifted to online, because the entire play in terms of buying has shifted online. If you look at especially if you took a look at smartphone brands, if you look at consumer consumer electronic brands, laptops, IT, etc. There is a significant amount of play which is currently moved online. Okay, marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart, Tata Click, okay, pretty much drive more than 50-60% of the kind of sales that you can see across most of these kind of categories. Now, if you look at a lot of traditional clients, like for example, the FMCG players, okay, to an extent, we've seen there has been a kind of a mixed bag there. Okay, so there we have seen a lot of brands which have still continued to play heavily the ATL way. Okay, if you look at brands like Amul and all, you've seen a lot much more of the spend going on ATL, especially on TVC and those kind of channels, even during the pandemic time. So they haven't really spent that much more on digital as much. And so their point of view has been that the consumer that they are typically trying to cater to has been traditionally a customer who has obviously shopped majorly online, although their products and their brands are definitely available online. But for them, it's basically the kind of effect that they are basically saying that by heavily advertising, they are able to get their mind share of those customers, and their customers will still continue to keep buying their brands irrespective of the channel.
Yeah, their portfolio is more off the shelf.
More off the shelf.
Yeah.
Correct.
Sonali, you also talked about huge spends and suddenly overnight your reallocation of budget to digital. For the genre that you play in and you focus on, which of the digital marketing mix you found more rewarding, and how did your sort of messaging change because of it?
So I think in a country like India, and the kids that are so used to consuming tons of Bollywood and music, what went through the roof was YouTube. And whatever you put out there, you took Rudra, and you took even the Rudra title track and gave it a bit of a remix and put it on YouTube. You suddenly saw the numbers going to millions because kids were consuming that with a lot of excitement and energy. So I would say that was a big one for us. The rise of the influencer beast, if I would call them, they're just growing day by day, and they're springing up in every category. And using them effectively on platforms like Instagram, and curating new content on a regular basis for the audience. So I would say social media, a big part of it. And for a much more high reach medium on digital, it would be YouTube for kids. And of course, our platforms itself reach out to so many millions of kids, and it's on 24/7. So our content our product is literally changing every second, unlike an FMCG brand where you put it on the retail shelf and people go and purchase it. Kids are living, breathing, and consuming our content every second of the day.
Digital started with a lot of display advertising, from whatever I remember. And then there was more trackability, data insights coming in. You could track till the last mile which person clicked on my banner, did he or she come and then fill in the form. So it became more and more performance driven because of the data insights and trackability that it brought in. So a lot of spends then now have moved towards using digital for performance marketing and performance driven outcomes. But now that the medium has grown so big, far and wide, and the whole mix within the digital is also sort of expanding, do you think now brands will be built on digital and using digital as a platform? And, will we go back to using it more for brand building also, which is how it started earlier, way back?
Yes, absolutely. I think today, it again will depend on category to category, but I can talk about confectionery and largely impulse category. There you see the brands using digital now more and more for awareness, so top of the funnel, and also for building consideration. It will also depend to a large extent what the a brand wants to achieve. But yes, we are seeing that for awareness and consideration, brands are using digital more and more. And of course, we know that you can get a lot of interesting KPIs, which can then help you to fine tune the campaigns as you go along. Within digital, I think there are several things which you can do. So as I mentioned, awareness and consideration, but also engagement is equally important. So what can I do on Snapchat? What can I do on Instagram? For example, there are AR filters which are available today. So these are all the opportunities which a person also has to look out for.
Influencers you talked about, and there's this advent of creator economy, right? Mm-hmm. Which has now come into play, where TikTok, Instagram, YouTube influencers, all platforms are available with influencers. Some at relatively inexpensive budget, some very popular with big celebs, the existing celebs which are across the platforms. Has this trend yielded dividends for marketers?
When it comes to kids, parents, and rightly so, are very, very protective about what the child consumes. And now with everyone living under the same roof 24/7, that monitoring has become even more severe. The kid is under constant surveillance. So as a marketer, the kind of effort we put into choosing an influencer, as Rohit said, the safety aspect, what is his overall perception on the platform that he's and will he connect with the audience in a very, very healthy, safe manner. I think once those checks and balances are in place, you do end up reaching the right audience in a very, very direct manner.
Sonali, one single striking change in the content consumption amongst kids and parents that you noticed?
Striking change, I would say, that was the rise of all the mytho gods. That we can't get you a vaccine for COVID-19, but if you watch a lot of Ramayana and Mahabharata, at least you'll get peace of mind. So yeah, sorry, that was slightly tongue-in-cheek, but that saw a huge jump. You certainly saw a lot of that nostalgic content back into play, and a lot of content that enabled healthy co-viewing. As I said, we're still largely a one TV household. So what is it that kids, parents, grandparents could watch together and feel happy? And that's where a lot of shows, even like Motu Patlu, we saw a surprising jump because clearly even parents found it as a stress buster and watched it with their kids.
Rohit, what is one message that you would like to give to businesses on how marketing can help win the last mile distribution? Because your business depends so much on the last mile distribution.
I think my message will be to be a bit more nimble and agile. Today, I think there is no fixed marketing plan which you can make and prepare. You have to make a plan B or a plan C also in place, and that will help you. Also today, the marketers have to coordinate much better with the other functions such as supply chain or trade marketing or the sales team to get a much better sense on the demand ongoing in the market, so that they are more agile and they can make their plans accordingly and also change them as and when it is desired, so rather than finding it out much later. So that is what my message will be.
What is it that you would like to tell clients how to prepare well for the e-com strategy?
I would basically say that clients will need to start looking at e-commerce not just like another channel. They would have to basically start looking at e-commerce as a very, very integral part of their business. It's a part of a business strategy, not an e-commerce strategy. Okay, I think that's exactly where a lot of brands have honestly got it wrong, because today we are talking our word of commerce, not e-commerce. Okay, because we have seen online and offline have technically converged in many cases today. In fact, the traditional retailers that we knew of are no more the brick and mortar stores. Okay, you have everybody from a Big Bazaar to a D-Mart to a Spencer having their own e-commerce websites, and you can definitely be able to conveniently order, and they are also able to deliver products to your doorstep, just like today a Big Basket or a Grofers or anybody for that matter.
This brings me to my last round. It's called the rapid fire round, thanks to Karan Johar. One quick question I'll take from one to the other, and I'll change the order so that no one gets clear advantage of the time gap. Have you ever slept through a video meeting?
Not really, but
Sonali?
yeah. If
Sonali?
Not yet.
Is honest people or not? Rohit?
No, not yet. But yeah, I have taken a quick shower.
Good. So in fact, that brings me to the next question. Sonali, what is the most oddball thing you've done while your camera was off during an online meeting?
Run and made some strong filter coffee to get through the rest of the torture.
That's the most sane thing everyone's done. You got to be more creative in these instances. Don't worry. Kartik, what is the most oddball thing you would have done while the cameras were off?
I would have obviously blasted my son now, because he would be basically sitting on his phone and fidgeting around, and I would have had to basically reprimand him quickly and then get back to the meeting. Yeah.
So you were not just minding your team, you were minding your kid.
Correct.
Rohit, what about you?
Yeah, I would have. I think I finished my share of cleaning the house, cleaning the utensils a couple of times. So with the headphones on and the camera off,
one Olympic sport that you or your brand would like to endorse.
Today, javelin is the hot topic. So I guess I would go for that. Okay. Sonali?
I would say hockey.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you got both the men and the women team
yes.
to choose from. You're spoiled for choice. Okay, great. Kartik, what Olympic sport you would recommend Rohit to endorse?
Football. I think football is the sport I would definitely like him to endorse.
Rohit, you have option 2 then from Kartik.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks a lot. That brings an end to the show. We like to end on happy notes, so that's why we have a rapid fire. I hope you guys enjoyed. I definitely had fun talking to you all and understanding the finer nuances of digital marketing, more so in this show at least.